Major changes to school lunch programs were intended to improve healthy eating habits while helping to decrease obesity in school-aged children. Our next guest, Cherylyn Harley LeBon with Project 21, is here to talk about how many of these programs are getting a failing grade. They simply are because the kids don't like the food. So we've got to change the taste buds of the kids, but this doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't happen overnight. The problem here is that, the requirements have been slowly phasing in last year, this year, and what we're finding is that the kids don't necessarily like whole grain pasta. And we're also finding out that the people doing the cooking of the whole grain pasta are having a problem with it because the pasta falls apart.
Really?
Wow. I guess the bureaucrats in Washington didn't think about the practical aspects of making whole grain pasta, which perhaps some kids don't like. Another example, regionally, in New Mexico, they have to make whole grain tortillas. Those are also cooked a different way, and the kids don't like these either, all right? So here's another thing. There's also a requirement about so many, percentage of the vegetables have to be fresh.
Right.
Well, guess what, Angela? Fresh may not always be the best option. They're on the truck a little longer. And you know what? Frozen may also give you the same amount of nutrients that children need.
Yeah, and I used to be married to a chef, okay, and he's really good at his job. And the one thing he said is, this is the order you want to go in: fresh, frozen, and you never want to have to do canned.
Exactly.
But if you have to, then do canned. But frozen vegetables are a viable option.
They are.
As is frozen fruit.
And let me tell you something. As a mother of two small kids, two school-age children, I am all about, yes, we know we have an obesity crisis. We know that children are eating too much fast food. We know all this. But the question is how we do it, because we know the palates of children, they're a little particular. I have a very finicky 7-year-old boy, so I get that. So part of it is one size does not fit all, Angela, number one. And number two, is there a way that we can somehow phase in some of these requirements so that, number one, the schools adjust, and number two, the children adjust? Because the bottom line here, Angela, is that school districts and schools that get the money, because in order to get the subsidies for school lunch program, you have to abide by the rules. But what happens, Angela, when the kids are, number one, not eating the food, they're going home hungry. Number two, the kids are throwing out the lunches, so already financially strapped school districts are losing money.
And let's talk about low-income children, low-income African-American children. So if they don't like what they're eating and they're throwing it out, this is sometimes all the food they have.
Exactly, and that is really my big concern, is that when we put these requirements, when we say whole grain and fresh, what I worry about is we're developing standards which may not fit for the entire population of the United States. And again, for low-income kids, if this is the only meal that they're getting, and they don't like the whole grain pasta, they're going home hungry.
So what are the what happens if a school district decides, I want to opt out of it? Or is that now what school districts are saying? I want to opt out of this requirement.
Right, some are doing that, but Angela, that means that they can't accept the federal subsidies, right?
So that means they wouldn't be able to feed with the free lunches.
Exactly. So it's a catch-22. If you want to be able to accept the federal money for school lunch programs, then you're going to need to abide by these rules. It's fine, you can opt out. Then you're not going to have the money to feed those children that need those meals.
So is this change in the way students are eating at school, this is all attached to the First Lady's initiative?
Yeah, well, and it's also part of the USDA rules. So the Department of Agriculture school lunch program. So it's all, it was developed by Congress with the approval, I wouldn't say approval, but with the acknowledgement and support of the First Lady as part of her Let's Move program. And so right now what they are trying to do is school lunch programs, I should say the school nutritionists, the National School Boards Association, all of them have expressed concern to Congress. They've been expressing it and saying, can we come up with sort of a way of maybe rolling back the sodium requirements? Because again, this changes the taste of the food. If you want to reduce the sodium levels to less than 1,000 milligrams and you want to meet those requirements, it's going to alter the taste of the food.
Right.
If you want to change everything over to a 100% requirement for whole grains, you know, this is a big change for kids. And it's also a big change for those lunch ladies who are back there cooking the whole grain pasta, which is falling apart because, of course, they're making the pasta for thousands of children, Angela.
A bunch of
right?
folks, yeah. So
Right.
when we talk whole grain, we're talking pasta.
Pasta, burritos, tortillas, biscuits, right? Anything that has a grain element, bread. And so some of the school nutritionists have asked Congress, well, can we roll that back to maybe 51%? And really, that's to give the schools and the kids a chance to adjust,
acclimate,
right?
So why doesn't that, I mean, do we need to bring that to Congress? What do we need to do?
I think they are doing that. The National School Boards has brought that up. The School Nutritionists Association has brought that up and said, you know, frankly, folks, we have a problem. The kids aren't eating the food, we're losing money, and we're not meeting our requirements.
The losing money is just everything that we all think government is, just bureaucrats, and it's just like so much lost money, and you can't, a program is not properly run.
Right. And you know, the other thing, Angela, is you also wonder, you know, we have these federal bureaucrats who are coming up with these rules. And as a mom, I question, would you have children at home?
Right.
Do you realize that kids have very finicky palates, that, you know, if you just can't all of a sudden just force new food on children.
You can barely do that with me as an adult.
Exactly. You know, I have the same issue. So, you know, we just want, I mean, we all agree we're on the same page with helping kids eat better and healthier and to reduce the obesity problem in our country. But there are other things that we can do. Perhaps we can slowly have schools adopt the rules. How about if we have more phys ed programs? How about that?
Imagine that.
Imagine
like
that.
we used to do. We had playtime. We'd run around and
how about
get us.
if we increase recess? Because, you know, the little boys, as we know, the ones that tend to have, you know, more incidences of ADHD, you know, it's almost it's like we're doing things in a vacuum. Like we want to reduce obesity by just food, but you can't do it just alone. But why don't we also let them run around outside a little more?
But everyone know. I mean, we don't need Jillian Michaels to tell us this. We know that if you want to keep your weight down, it's a combination of what you're eating and exercise. And the fact that schools have taken phys ed and so many other very essential programs out of the school is just, it's not helpful.
Well, here's the other thing they're doing. They're introducing iPads. I'm not a big fan of that.
What do you mean?
They're introducing iPads in the schools.
So the children need to buy one?
The children are using the iPads as an instrument for learning, which I applaud that and may be wonderful, but here's my problem. I think then when you do that, the kids are spending more time on the iPads and, again, more sedentary activities, which is not what I want them less time on the iPad and more outside in the playground running around. So again, you know, we do all these things. We love technology, so we're trying to revamp the school lunches. We're introducing iPads, yet we're reducing time outside. And I just think that, you know, again, let's take it in total and come up with some solutions that are going to work for children.
Well, this certainly is not what the First Lady wants. She wants you to get up and move. So why? So that
it seems like a disconnect, Angela. It really does. That on one hand, we're trying to revamp the school lunches, but yet on the other hand, she's advocating let's move. But yet we see that the school districts across the country are reducing time. They're reducing recess. They're reducing their phys ed program, and they're reducing after-school programs. I would prefer we put more money into after-school programs than to mess around with the whole grain.
Right. Agree. And that will help. Underserved communities. That will help mothers who are out there working minimum wage jobs, trying to, you know, make their family work, but they need some place to that their kids can be that's safe and they can still continue to learn. That's an after-school program. And we need money.
We need money for that. And again, I think an option would be frozen vegetables instead of the higher priced fresh vegetables, which, as we know, the longer they're sitting on the truck, the more nutritional value that they're going to lose.
And let's not forget, though, with frozen products comes a lot of sodium.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's another thing we have to be. But you know what? It's a catch. You know, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
That's right. It's not all this all at once, and then it's this mess of children throwing away food. I've seen some of this stuff. I throw it away too. I don't want that.
That's what I'm worried about. Is that, again, the kids are going home hungry. And here's another thing: the older kids who have access to transportation and vehicles, guess what they're doing, Angela?
They're going to Wendy's. They're leaving
campus and going to fast food restaurants. Now, isn't this what we were trying to avoid in the first? So it's, again, it's the law of unintended consequences, because we're trying to do one thing and then the net result is something else. And, you know, that I think is very unfortunate.
Cherylyn Harley LeBon with Project 21. Always good to have you back on the show.
Thank you for
talking
having
about
me.
a very important issue. You always do, and I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, Angela.
We'll be right back.